U.S. Senate has voted to approve a funding measure to end the federal government shutdown. But the bill still needs approval from the House and the signature of the president for the government to reopen. President Lee chaired a cabinet meeting this morning and called for strong punishment to be imposed for racial discrimination and hate speech. He ordered officials to crack down on hate speech based on race and nationality, saying it fuels social unrest. South Korea's Navy carried out its first ever fleet-level drill involving 7 warships and 3 aircraft, aimed at boosting operational capabilities. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin in the United States, where senators have voted to approve a funding measure to reopen the federal government, moving a step closer to ending the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. After a series of procedural votes on Monday, a final version of a funding compromise package passed the Senate with a 60-40 vote. Now the bill will have to return to the House, where a vote is expected on Wednesday before it's sent to President Donald Trump's desk to be signed for the U.S. federal government to officially reopen. The government shut down on October 1st after Congress failed to pass appropriations legislation for the 2026 fiscal year. Meanwhile, following the summit between Presidents Donald Trump and Xi Jinping in Busan 2 weeks ago, the long-awaited truce in the prolonged trade war between the United States and China has now taken effect. The Chinese government also announced that it will suspend sanctions on U.S.-based subsidiaries of Hanwha Ocean for 1 year. Our Song Yoo-jin has the details.
The heated trade tensions between the world's 2 largest economies appear to be entering a temporary cooling phase. Starting Monday, the United States has halved its fentanyl-related tariffs on Chinese imports from 20% to 10%. President Donald Trump made the announcement aboard Air Force One following his October summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Busan. The agreement finalized the framework set by negotiators in Kuala Lumpur just days before that high-stakes meeting.
I put a 20% tariff on China because of the fentanyl coming in, which is a big tariff. And based on his statements today, I reduced it by 10%, so it's 10% instead of 20% effective immediately. I believe he's going to work very hard to stop the death that's coming in.
With this, the overall U.S. tariff rate on Chinese goods will fall to roughly 47% from 57%. In return, Beijing has suspended its new export controls on rare earths for 1 year, critical materials used in electric vehicles, smartphones, and military hardware. It has also suspended retaliatory tariffs on U.S. agricultural products, including soybeans and pork, in response to Washington's fentanyl-related measures. In addition, the 2 sides have extended their mutual reciprocal tariff suspension for another year, which was due to expire this month.
The main consensus reached during the economic and trade consultations in Kuala Lumpur between China and the United States pertains to the U.S. Section 301 probe measures against China's maritime, logistics, and shipbuilding industries, as well as the extension of the suspension period for reciprocal tariffs.
This has brought good news for South Korea as well. On Monday, China's Commerce Ministry announced a 1-year suspension of sanctions on 5 U.S.-based subsidiaries of Hanwha Ocean. Last month, the ministry had barred Chinese organizations and individuals from doing business with these companies, accusing them of supporting the U.S. government's Section 301 probe into China. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, in a historic first, U.S. President Donald Trump has met Syrian President Al-Shara at the White House. Now, this marks the first visit by a Syrian head of state since the country's founding in 1946. Our Suneung reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump has met Syrian President Al-Shara for closed-door talks, marking the 3rd meeting between the 2 leaders this year, following their encounters in Saudi Arabia and at the UN General Assembly. After the summit on Monday, President Trump said the U.S. would temporarily lift sanctions on Damascus to help spur reconstruction in the war-torn country.
He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him, the president, the new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful because that's part of the Middle East. And we want to see Syria be successful along with the rest of the Middle East.
The summit also comes after decades of frozen relations between Washington and Damascus, which were severed in 2011 when the U.S. imposed sweeping sanctions over the Assad's government's violent crackdown on pro-democracy protests. The two nations have since remained on opposite sides of the Syrian civil war, with Washington backing opposition forces while Damascus turned to Russia and Iran for support. Al-Shara, a former al-Qaeda member once on the U.S. wanted list, broke ties with the group in 2016 and led the overthrow of the Assad regime last year. Washington officials say the meeting reflects a major shift in U.S. policy, with Syria expected to join the U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic State. Experts view the summit as a symbolic turning point, signaling Syria's gradual return to the international stage and a potential realignment in the Middle East order. Suneung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a U.S. lawmaker has reintroduced a bill to renew the North Korean Human Rights Act, which expired in 2022. According to the U.S. Congress website, Representative Young Kim, a Republican from California, submitted the measure last Friday with Democrat Ami Bera as co-sponsor. Originally enacted in 2004, the act has been periodically renewed in 2008, 2012, and 2018 to support human rights and freedom in North Korea. Its most recent authorization expired in September 2022. Although the House passed a reauthorization bill last November, the Senate failed to advance its own version. The act promotes humanitarian aid, human rights advocacy, and efforts to expand access to uncensored information for the North Korean people. And here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung has called for strong punishment for acts of racial discrimination and hate speech. Presiding over a weekly cabinet meeting this morning, he ordered officials to speed up establishing measures to root out hate comments based on race and nationality, calling such remarks outdated and saying they increase social unrest. President Lee also urged for strong measures against disinformation. Recently, the chief of the Korean Red Cross resigned over racist comments about foreign ambassadors in 2023, which were recently revealed by a report. On the security front, South Korea's Navy had launched a new task fleet command earlier this year for flexible operations going beyond specific maritime regions. It conducted its first major drill to boost its combat capability. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung was at the site.
Warships going at a speed of 10 knots target an enemy warship located around 8 kilometers away. Water columns splash on the surface of the sea as the ships fire their guns at the same time. This is part of the Navy Task Fleet Command's 3-day drills to enhance operational capabilities.
Marking the very first fleet-level maritime maneuver training, the Navy's Task Fleet Command conducted a variety of drills moving across the East and the South Sea.
Navy's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fleets operate in the East, West, and South Seas respectively, whereas the Task Fleet Command, established this February, aims to undertake operations across all maritime regions and even beyond the South Korea's maritime boundaries. The command had only conducted test group and squadron-level exercises until now. 7 warships, including the Aegis destroyer ROK's Cheongjo the Great, and 3 aircraft took part in the first fleet-level exercise, some 70 kilometers east of Pohang. Under simulated scenarios, ROK's Seoe Ryusongryong detected multiple aircraft operations and missile attacks. After tracking the threats, the vessel ordered other warships to engage in combat and successfully took down the targets with SM-2 missiles.
Through its first fleet-level maneuver exercise, the Task Fleet Command was able to establish an operational posture capable of executing assigned missions anytime, anywhere. It will continue to maintain military readiness with overwhelming combat power ensuring victory in any contingency.
The command will hold such exercises regularly to strengthen its capability to deal with whatever threats it might encounter. 김보경, Arirang News, 포항.
Meanwhile, the South Korean government is set to decide today whether to approve Google's request to export its high-resolution map data. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport says a special committee will meet to determine whether to allow Google access to the data needed for its 1 to 5,000 scale maps, which can display buildings, roads, and alleys in fine detail. This is Google's third attempt to obtain such data following previous rejections in 2007 and 2016 over national security concerns. And we're now just 2 days away from this year's college entrance exam, and it's not just the 500,000 students preparing for the test. The government is also mobilizing full support to ensure that the exam runs without disruption. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
These packages are among the most heavily protected parcels in the nation. They contain the test papers for the Suneung, or the College Scholastic Ability Test, which are being distributed to 85 test districts. The papers are being transported under heavy security and will be stored at secure locations until the exam this Thursday. This year, 554,174 students are registered to take the test at 1,310 centers nationwide. The Education Ministry says it is working with teachers on site to ensure a smooth process over the final 3 days.
For the remaining 3 days, we will meticulously check to ensure there are no disruptions to the exam. The Education Ministry will do its best, together with the teachers, preparing on site.
Nationwide support measures will be in place this Thursday to ensure students can take the exam without disruption. The exam runs from 8:40 a.m. to 5:45 p.m. To prevent traffic congestion, the government has requested public offices and businesses to delay their start times until 10 a.m. During the peak student commute, from 6 a.m. to 8:10 a.m., subway services in the Seoul metropolitan area will be expanded. Scenes like this, test takers getting out of a police car will not be a surprise, as police will also provide emergency escorts for students running late to ensure they arrive on time. Additionally, private vehicle access will be prohibited within 200 meters of test site entrances, requiring students to walk the remaining distance. Strict noise control measures will be enforced. The drivers of buses and trains near exam sites are asked to slow down and avoid using horns, while construction and public events are requested to minimize noise. These measures will peak during the 25-minute English listening test starting at 1:10 p.m. During this window, all aircraft takeoffs and landings nationwide will be suspended, and all military exercises, including artillery fire and tank movements, will be halted. These nationwide efforts underscore a society pausing in support of the test takers, who are also mostly teens, reflecting the same hopes and fervent prayers of parents nationwide as they try to reach their full potential. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Starting in India, where a car explosion in Delhi has killed at least 10 people and injured more than 30 near the city's historical Red Fort. Authorities say a slow-moving vehicle suddenly exploded near a traffic light close to a metro station by the Red Fort at around 6:40 on Monday evening local time. 6 cars and 3 auto rickshaws caught fire as flames lit up the area. Police say the cause is still unknown, but they're investigating from every angle. Security has tightened nationwide, with airports, railway stations, and government sites on high alert. The U.S. Embassy is urging citizens to avoid large crowds in Delhi. India's Prime Minister expressed condolences to the victims' families, calling the blast tragic. In the U.S., President Donald Trump has threatened to sue the BBC for $1 billion, accusing the British broadcaster of falsely editing a 2021 speech linked to the Capitol riot. Trump's lawyers on Sunday sent a letter demanding the BBC retract its documentary Panorama and issue an apology, saying the edited version made it appear he incited violence. The broadcaster admitted the footage was an error of judgment and apologized, but denied systemic bias. The controversy has already forced a resignation of the BBC's Director General and Head of News. The network says it will respond formally to the legal threat while working to restore public trust. Trump's legal team claims the edit caused major reputational damage and violated defamation law. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been released from prison after serving 3 weeks of a 5-year sentence for criminal conspiracy. A Paris court approved his release on Monday as he appeals his conviction, ruling he is not a flight risk. Sarkozy, 70, will remain under judicial supervision. He's barred from leaving France and may have to wear an electronic tag at home. Sarkozy maintains his innocence and says he was a victim of political revenge. Basketball legend Lenny Wilkens, a Hall of Famer as both player and coach, has died at the age of 88. His family says he passed away on Sunday surrounded by loved ones. Wilkens recorded over 1,300 NBA coaching wins and led Seattle Supersonics to its only championship in 1979. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame 3 times and remembered as one of the game's greatest leaders. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Korea is truly a gift from nature nowadays. Everywhere you look, you can enjoy the beautiful golden hues and rich autumn colors. However, yesterday's blue skies came with a serious chill. It was cold yesterday, but this morning was even colder. But despite the harsh start, temperatures will warm up dramatically by the afternoon. But another sign we are getting close to the end of the year here in Korea is the upcoming Suneung Day, the college entrance exam day. Temperatures will be above season norms on a test day, meaning we will fortunately avoid a typical exam cold snap this year. This afternoon, most regions will see highs above 15 degrees Celsius, topping out at just 15 degrees here in Seoul. Daegu, Gwangju will be topping out at 16 degrees under sunny skies nationwide today. The weather gets colder after Suneung Day, and then early next week, we will wake up to a real winter chill. So enjoy the last stage of stunning autumn weather while you can.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.